Good evening. Welcome to this nice event to have Professor Chiesa from UMass here to give the lecture. And I want to thank you for your curiosity, for your activity to come here, and you don't know what happens. And I think this curiosity leads to a creativity, to an activity which is a creativity. And the creativity for all of you who just took the lessons from Professor Chiesa is spiritual joy. So I hope that we have a little bit of spiritual joy today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Lotte. Well, thank you all for being here and sharing this. I think since we're a small group, it would be nice to have a conversation. So I'm going to say a few things and I will open it up. Hopefully you will maybe have some questions or comments about what I said or about the work that is behind me. You can blame me for this wall. This is my wall here for this time around. And so I have created these pieces. Before I start talking about, which is not really a lecture, I mean, it's a sort of a conversation, a casual artist talk. But I want to congratulate Lotte in her 20th anniversary in business in the art cabinet in Nantucket. It is quite an accomplishment to run an art gallery. It is a monumental accomplishment to run an art gallery in Nantucket, and it is an even bigger accomplishment to run an art gallery in Nantucket with modern art, and even beyond that, it's even grander to do it for 20 years. So the staying power, congratulations. I actually came to Nantucket about 18 years ago for the first time. I was driving downtown. I didn't have high hopes for the art in the island, meaning because I knew Martha's Vineyard, I know I would grow up in an island and so on. And I'm driving down Union Street at night, like 10 at night after a restaurant, and there's this little window like so, and two windows, and I see these things, this modern art, these contemporary paintings, which I really did not expect. And I remember putting my brakes and just hitting my brakes and stopping and pulling out of the car. There was nobody there, and spending a lot of time looking through the window. I said, I can't believe what I'm seeing here in this island. So the next day I came over and introduced myself to Lotte and said, I was so impressed and so moved. And we hit it off, and we've been working together for all that time. And it's been a very fruitful relationship. So thank you, Lotte, again.
Wasn't it nice that your students at the same time also walked at that night and discovered it and wanted to surprise you, and you both knew it, and then we met
that is true.
The students.
That is true. Hello. I want to say just a few things about the spiritual in art, because that's something that really concerns me a lot. I read this great phrase by Novalis, the German Romanticism writer, who said art, he was referring to poetry, but art exists to heal the wounds of rationality. I grew up in an island, as I said, in Old San Juan, and I was an altar boy. I was a very religious boy. I had zero. Part of me is a little strange that I started this talking about myself, but it's going somewhere with the theme of spirituality, because I was a very dedicated altar boy. I grew up in a Catholic family, although in my mother's side, my father was a Rosicrucian. So it was all mysticism and a lot of religion involved in my upbringing. I had no talent with art. I had no idea that I wanted to draw. I didn't know anything about it. But I observed, and I had eyes. And the one talent I had was not drawing, it wasn't poetry, it was just looking. And I looked and looked and looked and looked. To the point that when I was a little kid, they called me the owl in school. In grade school, I was the owl, because I was that broody kid in the corner who would not play, who would be totally terrified of girls, and so on, but I would be looking. And people noticed that I was looking intently at them. And what that did was, all of a sudden at the age of 13, I had a kind of epiphany out of the blue. I thought I wanted to paint a picture, and I painted my first painting then. I had no reason to do it other than curiosity. I did it, and the moment I finished it, I stayed with it. I knew that was what I was going to do the rest of my life. To this day, 100 years later, I'm still at it. And it hasn't gotten any easier, it has just gotten more difficult. But one thing that happened that was really phenomenal was that before I learned anything about theory of art or about what art really, art history and engaging with the tradition of what I was trying to enter that world, I knew that it fulfilled for me a metaphysical need. It fulfilled for me a kind of necessity of finding out something that is beyond the appearance of things, something that will take me to this other world of love, of God, of mysticism, of finding that which we all are engaged with since the moment we're born. And the moment I started painting, I actually left the church and didn't go back to work as an altar boy, and it totally replaced for me what I was getting out of this experience of being so dedicated at the church. Besides, at the church, not only in the Catholic Church, as you know, there's so much statuary and paintings, and they attack all your senses, the incense and the music, the Bach, and all the great classical music of the Catholic rites. So I already was enthralled by all of that, but all of a sudden I realized I can do this. I can be the one who gets engaged with this process. And I completely replaced my spirituality with the process of painting. It is then that one begins to realize that we all are in the process of trying to figure this thing out. This thing of being human, this thing of being alive, this thing of being a participant of an experience that is not an experience of our choice. It's an experience that is given to us because we're brought into this world by our parents. And the moment, it's like, imagine an assembly line, right? And it's a factory, and a baby is born. And immediately the baby is born, there's a label put on them, which is their name. Immediately that, all of a sudden you realize, I am Michelle, I'm Wilfredo, I'm Dirta, And that begins to color your experience. And then rapidly, we send the boys to the blue room and the girls to the pink room. And then we keep moving ahead, and we get to school, and we learn how to reason our world, how to reason our experience of being alive. And we learn to categorize it into different disciplines, and math, and science, and this and that other thing, and literature and language. I am an educator, so I'm involved in the process. But throughout all of this, we get, in my opinion, somewhat confused, if not perhaps a little wounded. I mean, remember that to be able to heal, you have to be wounded first, because otherwise you can't heal. You're already healed. But we all are wounded by this rationality, by this system of being that tells us how to be in the world and who we are in the world. And what do? We go to church, or we do drugs, or we read novels, or we go to the movies. We are finding always how to cross the barrier between the physical and the metaphysical. And that is the value of what painting has done for me. Many years later, as I became an educated artist and I learned about our history, you read all these great essays like, Vasily Kandinsky, who wrote this great book concerning the spiritual in art. And the moment you begin to understand that you have to engage with the metaphysical part of your life, and that the only way to engage with that life in an honest, productive way is to engage with the life through the means of things that are not going to make sense. They're simply not going to make sense. The rational mind, Pascal said, love has reasons that reason cannot understand. Okay? You cannot apply reason. I mean, I'm glad that I'm talking here about this and not about my paintings, because it's hard enough to make them. I don't want to have to explain them, you know. But so it is the idea that reason will not do it for you. It's not enough. And so you run into the world of metaphysics, which is the world of spirituality. The history of art is the history of humanity trying to give form to that other realm. It's as if there's a veil in our lives, and we have the opportunity to cross to the other side or cross back, you know. And those who cross to the other side, who are people engaged, you know, they're maybe priests or artists, or they're even some art historians, and people engaged with art in many different permutations. You realize that there is something, there's a whole experience, it's a multiplied kind of life. Artists in the studio live a multiplied kind of life. I am the kind of artist who tries to live my personal life outside the door of the studio, come in and reach a state of being in there that is a parallel track. I'm also terrified of death. So I want to live many lives. I was telling you this just a moment ago. So, you know, it allows me to jump into this other track, and only that begins to make sense when I'm engaged in this. When I'm in the thick of rationality, with my name, with my identity, with my gender, with my, you know, professorship, with my, you know, everything else, my family and my children and the colleges, and the, you know, the money and all that, it is not possible to have the time to be in this other realm. The assets, the mystics, the priests, the artists, we're all in pursuit of the same thing. Is that understanding that there's certainly more than meets the eye, and there's certainly more than 2 + 2 is 4. Theory, Johannes Itten, the great German artist, said theory is meant for moments of weakness. It's like money in the bank. We need reason, we need theory, you know, otherwise we can't function in the world. We have to get up, we have to brush our teeth, we have to go to work, we have to make money, you know. But when you are able to live a life that is driven, not by theory, but by inspiration, you know, you have, I think, encountered, I don't know if it's deeper or higher, or it's a different life. I won't even qualify it as that it's a better life. It's the life that moves all of us who are here, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. You know, we're here because we want to be in that other realm. We are expanding our experience through our encounter with art and with love and with religion and with all the spiritual aspects of being. So within that, and you know, I don't want to bore you with too much talk that is too long. At some point, I had gone through a very rigid academic training, but then I encountered abstraction, and in abstract painting, I found a greater possibility of spirituality. Not because it's better than representational painting, not because it is, according to some people, harder than representational painting. Some people think it's easier, but it's not true. My students can testify to that. We just spent a week doing abstractions here in Nantucket. You know, it's much harder. But because you have an opportunity to create something that has no labels. You don't have a label attached to it that will impair somebody when looking at this thing to go to that other side that I have been hoping to convey to you, which is what art is about and is what painting has meant in my life. You know, the vision is free. Vision is abstract. It is the brain that brings in the labels. It is the brain that names things. You know, try and start drawing an apple and draw it from the center out. Just draw the light and then see how you can reach the borders, you know. And when you're beginning this drawing, believe me, it's not going to look like an apple, but eventually it will look like an apple. Although it will never be an apple, like René Magritte, the great Belgian surrealist painter, painted this great picture of this luscious apple. And he said, this is not an apple. You know, you cannot eat it. You cannot, you know, nourish yourself with it. So, I'd rather have a little bit of an opening for a couple of conversations, if anybody is up to ask a question or intervene and save me from this. Actually, but anybody?
You said that you made the decision, not the church, but the art.
Yes.
Picasso said, if you don't have art, have religion. So he knew what he was talking about.
Yes.
You need something to hold on to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you leave people alone, what are they going to do? They're going to take a piece of wood and make noise and make music. They're going to take a stick and draw something in sand. They're going to dance, they're going to move, they're not going to sit still, So it's a natural way of being. It is the other side that trains us. Like who was it? I think it was Mark Twain. Try not to let your schooling get in the way of your education. Schooling is about training for the world. Education is to expand your horizons,
And it's also courage.
Yes.
Being an artist, it's courage, because you have to be very safe and self-confident in a modest way.
Yes.
To end the need to express your truth.
Yes.
So it all goes together.
And it's something that, in my life, been great. I'm very lucky. I have the most beautiful life I could have ever even dreamt. When I started doing this, I had no idea. I thought it was going to be just complicated, difficult, almost impossible. But I did it because I couldn't help it. I think you can ask a composer, ask a poet. You just can't help it. You do it because you have to. It's something that if you can avoid, you'll be wise to avoid, probably, and not go through all the complications implicit in it. Anything else? Yes?
When I met you first with painting, they had always a little bit of realism in it. There were at least arches.
Oh, yes, I remember.
What happened when you gave up this last little corner of realism into what you are doing now, where there is absolute pure abstraction?
Yeah, Christine is referring to a series of paintings I did. There were 100 paintings of this sort of, it's called the ogival arc, which is what they use in ecclesiastic architecture. This arc that goes like this. It was 10 years, I did 100 paintings. I was obsessed with that form. But Christine, funny because a lot of people indeed have seen this as architecture. But for me, it was a form. It was a form because it was a geometric form, just like the square or the rectangle are other forms. What fascinated me most about this form, and in the way that I was presenting it, was that it points upwards and is uplifting by its own nature. That's why it's used in churches. It is also used because it gives you the opportunity to get a greater expanse of space without columns and beams. But in reality, by pointing upwards, it produces a result that I love about the freedom of painting to create a reality that's separate from the world as we know it. And that is, we don't depend on gravity in painting. So anything that elevates you, in a way, fulfills a purpose of liberating you from the constraints of gravity. Gravity is what, we have to feel stable, we have to feel balanced to move in the world. But in the world of painting, that is not so. The painting only needs a nail in the wall. It's not going to fall if it's out of balance. It's going to be there. And if you look at Marc Chagall can throw a cow in the sky and two lovers kissing in midair. There is no gravity in Marc Chagall's paintings and so many others like Moreau. So, yes, to tell you the truth, I was made conscious of this being architecture a lot by people who were looking at it. And when I got rid of that, it was not because I wanted to get rid of it, but I was satisfied. I was done. Gerhard Richter, the great German painter, was asked just recently, when is the painting finished? He said, well, when nothing bothers me anymore. So, it gets to a point where you're satisfied and you move on, Yes?
When you start a series, do you have a vision before you start, or does the vision emerge as you put the paint on the canvas?
I try and let it emerge. I have an idea, a rough idea, but I have learned in art, as much as in life, not to stick to the program. So, you know, the adventure of living and the adventure of painting are to me very similar. And the reason I paint the way I paint is that I try to mock or imitate, not imitate, but to engage with painting the way I engage with life, which is I live a ridiculously spontaneous life. And I, you know, try and figure out what I'm going to grab from the day and edit out some things I don't want, some things may divert me to some other place. So in that attitude, the thing evolves, yes. Any questions? Yes.
As I know, this painting behind you is down here. So it's Nantucket, it's painted as Nantucket, and I know some others are not down here. So is there any element in there or something like you love about, or I mean, is there Nantucket in the painting, or like the place you painted the painting in your painting? Or
I think we cannot get away from our environment. There's no intent of having Nantucket in there on my part. But, you know, if you're, as I told you when I was a kid, they called me the owl. I look and I look and I look, and I can spend the whole day looking at how the light changes. And so I think it gets in there, you know. It gets in there just like, you know, triangles and squares and arches get in there, and there are echoes of things. We cannot invent anything in art. I mean, it's just rectangles and lines. They're all over our environment. You know, we just reconfigure them. It's like the musician who takes the musical notes and can decide to write, you know, a jazz piece or a sonata. I mean, it's the same notes. You just start rearranging the whole thing, you know. So the answer is I don't know, and I don't think about it. That's something that maybe somebody like an art historian could maybe help me understand, because I was just reading, I showed my students the other day a video of Agnes Martin, this great, you know, sublime minimalist painter from the West Coast, from the Midwest. And she's now in this video a very old lady in her 80s, her high 80s. And she's asked, what do you think about when you paint? And she says, I don't think. I try and block everything out. And that is true. Some of you who are maybe writing or doing music, you know that when you get engaged with this, time stops. Or rather than stop, maybe accelerates. Or it's not the time that is on this side. There's a different time in there. You know?
That proves that it is yourself and that you express your truth. I found out that only the artist, it might be the lowest level or the highest level, when it touches you, it is the courage to express your truth. And therefore you don't think of this and this and this, but you just paint. So this is, for me, the guarantee. I learned it from artists. Why am I impressed of this little level?
Yes.
Because it was the truth, the courage for the truth.
Any other questions?
I was going to say to Ravon's point,
yes.
Maybe I'm projecting onto the painting.
Oh, well, go ahead.
But you took us to the secret forest.
Yes.
And you were
hidden forest.
The hidden forest, and you were so intent on finding it, and you were so excited about it. And I saw that when I saw the painting. To me, it seemed like that sort of dark, almost tunnel that we had to go through to get to the forest. There's just bits of light coming in.
That's very nice.
Maybe that's me, or...
No, I hope so. I mean, I hope that I'm not so crazy to be in Nantucket and do something completely disconnected from it. That would be really wild. But, you know, I just want to say, you know, apropos of what you say, you know, we're in this actually to find our hidden forest of our soul, the hidden forest of art, not as a commodity, not as the crazy world of auctions when you're, you know, betting against the chandelier, you know, and you don't, you know, art becomes a commodity, but art as a vehicle to find that hidden forest that only love, art, and mysticism and religion, not organized religion, mysticism can provide for you, you know. And if we can get to a hidden forest, the best thing we can do for ourselves is close our eyes and take it in. Take it in. That's it. Thank you. for the opportunity.